Hello and welcome to today's session hosted by the Sales Management Association. Our webcast will start in just a few moments. We have a few very brief announcements. First, please note that we will not open attendees' audio or video lines during the session itself, but we do very much welcome your questions and comments. We encourage you to submit those at any time during the broadcast. You can do that in a couple of ways. The easiest way is simply to click on the display screen. You'll see a chat link there, which will allow you to add your comment directly into chat. Now, if you prefer, you may also email them to us. We'll send a little banner across the bottom of the screen during the session to give you the email address you'll need to do that. It's support@salesmanagement.org. But you'll see this reminder to send us your questions and comments as we go. Thank you in advance for those. Also, just as a reminder, we'll be recording our session. We'll make it available for playback in the Sales Management Association's resource library. Our members will be able to view the archive and also download slides from today's session there. Our session today is one in a series of web-based Sales Management Association presentations that feature practitioners and thought leaders in the field of sales force effectiveness. The Sales Management Association is a professional association for sales operations, sales enablement, and sales leadership professions. We provide our members with research, case studies, training, peer networking, and professional development. If you're joining us for the first time, we invite you to consider membership in the association. You can learn more about that while you're here on our site at salesmanagement.org. Also, as a reminder, please make plans to join us at the Salesforce Effectiveness Conference. We'll be holding the conference December 7th and 8th, 1 month from today, at the Gozueta Business School at Emory University in Atlanta. We hope you can join us for that. I'm Bob Kelly, Sales Management Association Chairman. I'm really excited to welcome two excellent speakers today. I want to introduce them to you. Our first speaker today is Greg Detty. He is a sales executive at eSpatial, a provider of cloud-based mapping software that lets users easily upload, visualize, and analyze multiple layers of data. He helps eSpatial's clients utilize mapping visualizations and data to improve territory management, route optimization, and other challenges. He, before joining eSpatial, worked at Teraline, which later became Map Anything and was subsequently acquired by Salesforce. He is joined by colleague Ken Kramer. Ken is Vice President, North America at eSpatial. Before joining the firm, Ken was Senior Vice President, Product Strategy and Enablement at Map Anything, and also President at the aforementioned Teraline. Gentlemen, it's great to have you with us. Welcome, Ken Kramer and Greg Detty.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for having us today.
Yeah, well, we're excited about your presentation. I'm going to turn the floor over to you, and thank you again. I'll be back with you for Q&A.
Good. Thanks. All right. I'm going to add one more quick blurb about Greg's past. Aside from working with him at the last 2 or 3 companies, we worked together 20 some odd years ago at Map Info, and prior to that, Greg was actually a GIS practitioner. So he's been doing this mapping stuff for probably since he had hair. Sorry, Greg. All right, let's get into things. Actually, if you go back real quick, just to reiterate, this is the 3rd time I think we've had these webinars each of the last 2 months. So this is the 3rd in a row. We started out talking about geoanalytics, coverage, analyzing coverage models, and so on along that perspective of spatial analysis, and then leveraging that information to help design territories and set assignments for the reps. And then today's we're going to look at route planning and call scheduling. So, this is really, kind of taking the full process from planning to execution, all in the vein of trying to make your reps more effective and efficient out in the field. In today's third session, as we talked about, we're going to talk about maximizing that sales rep activity, scheduling meetings, scheduling potentially unscheduled meetings at the last minute, anything to enable the rep to see more accounts in less time. We'll give you some tips and tricks, some best practices. We're going to run through much of what we're going to talk about. We do have a little bit of a bias towards, obviously, we're going to use some screenshots from our solution, but much of this can be done, perhaps not as easily, leveraging spreadsheets, Google Maps, Waze, CRM, or your data from your CRM. So hopefully you'll recognize how this is applicable with or without our solution. But yes, the screenshots are from our solution, hoping to just get the point across of the type of things you should be looking for as you're in the planning process, which for many of you on the territory side is often Q4. Now on the routing and scheduling side, more of an ongoing type of thing. But again, Q4 is often the time when folks in the sales ops roles are really looking to plan out next year and gain as many efficiencies as possible. All right, so we'll talk about how we define and what we consider route optimization, schedule optimization, some of the benefits that you can get from it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here if there's no benefits. Greg will then take over, run through half a dozen best practices, things that you guys can work on at home or on your, at work to try to put into practice for the upcoming year. We'll wrap things up and take some questions and answers. All right. So route optimization, when we talk about it, and in this particular slide, I'm really trying to focus just on the route optimization side, and then I'll tie in scheduling in the next slide. But this is really where I think everybody understands you're trying to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. The reality for a sales rep is there's point C, D, E, F, G, and it could go on and on. Many field-based reps will be doing 6 to 10 calls a day. There's some that could potentially be doing more or less if accounts are farther apart or the call time at each of those accounts is longer. So we're looking at how to optimally make each of the accounts, whether they're customers or prospects, and take into account how long each of those visits needs to be and the best possible route to be able to see those accounts, whether it's ABCD or ADBC or whatever it may end up being, but to be able to do it as quickly as possible with the goal of being able to see as many accounts in the least amount of time. And think about doing this on an ongoing basis, whether it be for one rep or for your entire sales force. It gets to be a little bit of an arduous task on an ongoing basis and to be able to do it at scale. But we'll give you some helpful tips to get through the process. When then taking it a step further, we were, prior to this kicking off the webinar, trying to come up with a good analogy, which I failed at doing. Going out and optimizing your route without looking at the customer constraints will end up being a little bit futile. You don't want to be making 12 calls instead of 10, but only seeing half of those accounts, because when you get there, the other side is not available. It's a waste of time for the rep. It's a waste of goodwill for the customer. So the scheduling part really becomes significantly more important than a lot of folks have historically taken into account. And it's really a critical part to then doing, we often say route and scheduling, but perhaps we should be looking at this as scheduling first and then setting up the ideal route to be able to meet those requirements. The reality is you want it to be somewhere in between there. Some accounts, as Greg will get into, will have specific time frames where they can meet, and others will be more flexible. And you want a system to be able to help you determine which ones to slot in at the right place, so that you're getting the full benefit of the rep's capacity and utilizing their time getting to the most accounts possible. So you're taking into account the ideal plan that you have and the constraints of both the sales rep and the customer, and also, of course, on the location and the ability to travel from one account to another. The benefit of doing this is tremendous. We've often talked in a prior session on the territory optimization side that you can gain 4 to 12% efficiencies by grouping the right accounts together within the territory so that the rep can see them better. And that's typically being done sometimes using drive time, but not necessarily precise route optimization. It's really a modeling exercise, not so much of a daily execution exercise. When you pull those great territories over to the route optimization side of things to look at planning out a day or a week, you then have incremental efficiencies that you can gain. So the ability to see more accounts in the same amount of time, the ability to reduce the travel costs. And while I joked previously about Greg and I doing this type of work for decades now, I do think back to kind of the first time, I don't know, it might be 10 years ago. So with my age, I'm forgetting some precise dates. But the first time when gas kind of spiked up over $5 a gallon, we had a lot of phone calls. People were like interested in figuring out how can we reduce the expense of all of the calls that everybody in the field, sales or service, needs to be making. It became a critical component on the expense side of things. We often look at things on the upside of things. The benefit of being able to see more accounts is you can generate more revenue. But many CFOs are just as interested in reducing the associated costs with those sales calls as well. Additionally, you'll learn and through this see how that you can create these schedules not just better but also quicker. So your internal resources will spend less time doing an arduous task and more time doing other strategic tasks. And then the ability to give the rep the tools so that while they're in the field, they can kind of make the game day call and say, all right, this one canceled, I can go see these 2 accounts instead, and still take advantage of their 8-hour day that they could be working and see more accounts each day. I'm going to turn things over to Greg. He's going to run through this list of best practices, and then I'll join him at the end to assist on any questions that come in.
Great. Thanks, Ken. Hi, everybody. As Ken said, I will run through this list of best practices, both at a high level, and we can drill into each one individually for some more detail. Starting with really understanding what your goal is really what's going to drive you to understand who you're going to go see. So aligning your sales strategy and prioritizing your calls. This may be different. It is going to be different for companies that are looking into routing, but the strategy is the same. Understanding for this month or this week, what is your goal? Secondary to that is understanding customer locations. I mean, that's an obvious one when it comes to routing and scheduling. You've got to get there. But at a macro level, being able to look at your book of business in its entirety and understand, where things are. As a next best practice, understanding how you can build around some critical accounts and appointments. Not every customer or prospect that you're going to visit is going to have a scheduled appointment. Although the reason for going to field is likely that you do have a number of appointments scheduled. So locking those down and being able to build around them. In addition to that, and part and parcel with that is understanding your availability as well as your customer's availability. So aside from locked scheduled appointments, what is the availability of your customers in general in the area? So if you have an understanding of when they're generally available, when you can jump in and see them, having the routing engine being able to take that into account when there's an opportunity to slot a new appointment either before or after or somewhere in the day. Again, you want to review yours and your customer's availability. Once you do that, you now have the constituents to go ahead and have the routing engine taking those constraints into account to plan out your week or your month. And the idea is to plan it first. Understand what your goals are, what these constraints are, having the routing engine being able to respect those, and then planning out your week or month and seeing how that pans out. And then lastly, once you're on the road and once you're executing on the plan, being able to optimize your selling day as things change. So I'll drill into each one of these just a bit, aligning sales strategy and prioritizing calls. The idea here is that to identify your customers with respect to your strategy, and we kind of went through that already. Understanding what is the purpose of this trip. And being able to selectively, select a target list. So you want to prioritize customers based on various things, and these will change for every person using this, such as revenue potential, or perhaps the opportunity status. What stage are you in the sales cycle that may require an on-site? Perhaps if you're on a campaign for a particular product line, understanding what the likelihood is to purchase that product, things of that nature. So again, these are all attributes associated with your customers, which may vary. And then to ultimately compile a list of targets, right? So you're going to be going out, who are my targets that I'm going to try to go see? So again, being able to use a system to, first off, prioritize who the customers are, and you may do this by certain filters and certain attributes associated with your customers and prospects, such as a revenue range that they did maybe last year, the status of a sales opportunity, perhaps a last meeting date, which could be a valuable one. And once you've done that, being able to ask your routing and scheduling app to make some recommendations for you based on those criteria. Ultimately, you're ending up with a target list. The next best practice, understanding customer locations. As we all know, that customer locations are not homogeneous. Now, that may not be the case if you're in a denser area with a lot of customers, but generally speaking, customers are not evenly spread. So you want to identify, at least at a macro level, where the clusters and the gaps are as you start to plan out your week and your month. And doing such processes such as filtering by proximity. For example, I've got a map here showing some yellow stars are hard to see, but those, for example, may be your key accounts. You're going to go out to see them. But when you're going to these locations, understanding, okay, well, what else is around there since I'm going out there? Who are going to be my target list for that day or that week? Now, obviously, your situation may be a lot more compact, but the same idea applies to even a small territory that has the dense enough prospects and customers to perform this proximity. In this case, I did a 120-minute drive time buffer around my key accounts, and those may be then targets for that visit to that key account. Who am I going to see while I'm out there? The next best practice is building around critical accounts and appointments. Like I said earlier, the reason you're going out may likely be because you have appointments already scheduled. So the idea is being able to build around that. So you're making the most of your time in the field. So being able to lock those accounts and being able to schedule them at a specific time that you've agreed upon with the customer or the prospect. prioritizing other accounts and putting them into the schedule, and then allowing the routing engine to fill the remaining schedule using the closest or quickest routes. Again, the routing engine is going to respect some of the constraints and some of the filters that you had originally set for that target list. Of course, it's going to do the nearest and the closest and try to slot them in the most efficient way possible to get the most calls possible in your 8-hour workday. So again, being able to lock stops, set the time and the schedule, the dates, the duration of that call, and then being able to slot that right into your schedule when you know you're going to be there. This can be done once or for many. Obviously, the more that you lock, the less opportunity the routing and scheduling has to make an efficient day, but that's the whole purpose. You know you want to go see these folks, but you want to fill in the rest of the gaps the best you can. The next thing you're going to have to do is to review and to set your customers' availability, right? So we have two variables here. We have the customer, and again, what I'm talking about here is not lock stops, not meetings that you scheduled, but if you do want to allow the routing engine to understand when are these unscheduled visits generally available, when you can come in and see them. So setting their availability and the duration of the call that you may want to have with that individual. So for example, saying that they can only meet on Monday, right? So being able to set that as an availability, so the routing engine will, if they come across this as a prospect to plug into the schedule, they'll understand it can only work on a Monday. And also being able to set the time for that meeting. The other variable is going to be the sales reps availability, right? When do they start and finish their work day? What is the duration of those calls? Maybe you want to schedule in a break during a certain time to go have lunch. Again, is this going to be a round trip or is this going to be a continual trip for a week? Being able to set starting and ending points. And then obviously the days in the week that you're available to do that. So you're setting these criteria, and the routing engine will respect those, both of the availability of the prospect or customer, and then the availability of the sales rep themselves. So drilling in a little bit more, planning your week or month first. So it's always best practice to actually have kind of a plan, before you actually execute on that. So doing an iterative process until you end up with the right plan that's hitting the right customers is possible with these engines to quickly change things if you don't like the way it turned out. But then ultimately planning in advance before executing. So such as what you're seeing here, I am encapsulating a number of accounts that I know I want to see, and then having that be your target list, putting it into the routing engine and cranking out your route and your schedules. Looking at the whole week in this example, you'll notice that looks like Friday afternoon, Friday morning stops at 10 o'clock, which is great for a sales rep. But as Ken would review my activity, he would say, well, you made a mistake. You work all of Friday. So you may want to go back and take a look. All right, who else can I get into that schedule to fill up my week? I see a few locations that are nearby. They may be suspects to go ahead to enter into the short list of stops and then rerun your route to fill up that week. And the last important factor is being able to be flexible and to optimize your selling day. As you know, things happen. There's traffic. There's appointments canceled. People calling sick. So things are never going to go out as the plan was put forth perhaps the week prior. So you do have to be able to have that flexibility to say, okay, somebody's canceled and I've got another 2 hours before my next meeting. Who else can I slot in there? Being able to quickly identify, who might be another suspect that I can go ahead and put in there. So if you do have a routing and scheduling app that has mobile capability, using your phone or your tablet or wireless device to be able to find those others that may fit into the schedule. So being able to cancel and to look for new appointments, being able to really quickly add them and rerun the route for that day to hopefully get that one extra meeting in there for the one that canceled, or the two, etc. So again, full from front to back, planning it out, understanding who you're going to see, scheduling or dialing in the constraints of yourself and the prospects and any locked meetings, running the plan in advance, and then executing on that, knowing that you can make adjustments as things do change out in the field all the time. So Ken, I'm going to hand this back over to you to talk a little bit about the testimonials that we've had. Ken, I'm not hearing you. Maybe you want to unmute. Down on the bottom.
All right.
There you go.
Thank you. I was going to blame Bob, but it was all me. So we just put a couple of these up from some of our customers, and the benefits, again, not necessarily to promote just us, but the benefits they're getting out of using this type of thing. The ability to plan high target potential leads, and get more reps, and to be able to do this more easily. It's interesting also to see the first ones on the medical side of things. So I don't know if we gave that many different type of examples, but there are obviously in the medical world, doctors will say, I'm only willing to visit med product reps or pharma reps during these windows. And those windows of availability are critical to then build around. And that happens in, differently across different industries and different companies. So being able to leverage that's critical. So I'll leave these up here for folks to read a little bit, and they'll again be in the deck that'll be available afterwards. Other than that, Bob, I think we can open it up for some Q&A if you'd like.
Sounds good. It took me a moment there to unmute my mic.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So
trying to make me look good. Thank you. Or not so bad anyway.
Whatever it takes, I'm willing to do that. So thanks. I'll remind our audience that you can submit questions now. You can do that by clicking into the chat window from the display window that the video is in currently. You can also send them by email. There's our little banner that will help you figure out the email. It's support@salesmanagement.org. I'll keep an eye on those. I think we do have at least one question in the queue. Let's get to that. Questioner asks, what kind of sales jobs is this best for route planning and call scheduling? Is it for any kind of sales job or just those that have a lot of, I guess, repeat calls and customers?
So I would suggest the delineation wouldn't necessarily be the repeatability of those calls, but more so inside versus outside. So this is definitely geared towards a field sales, if we're doing routing to specific locations. But that also, I would add in field service as well as field sales. Anybody that merchandising, perhaps, this is big in the beverage distribution world, where they're making deliveries. The sales sometimes making the deliveries themselves, or there's a sales rep, but they're making calls on a weekly basis to bars and restaurants and liquor stores and so on and so forth. And then those deliveries are being followed up, later in the week or the following week. And they often do need to be within certain delivery windows. Those things are critical. I would suggest that industries like, as I'd mentioned, pharma, med products, CPG, perhaps where there are a lot of repeat calls and servicing of those accounts. Those are the industries that I typically find leading the charge, looking to gain efficiencies more so perhaps than some other industries. But I believe that virtually all industries with the field organization can benefit from this.
Terrific, thanks. So it looks like that's the extent of our questions so far on this topic. So before we let you go, maybe we can just talk a little bit about how firms might get started in this area. Do you typically have companies, adopt a whole system at first, or do they sort of wade into some of the practices that you guys described today?
We've kind of seen it across the board. We certainly have small organizations that'll right out of the chute look to design the best possible territories and give their reps tools to plan and route their territories. Larger organizations might start on the analytics and the territory side and kind of do pilots on the rep routing side of things and see how that goes as well. So it can vary. I am, while everybody loves doing the big deals, I'm a big fan of making sure that you do it right and that you're successful. So if an organization has 1,000 reps, I would probably encourage picking a pilot and rolling it out on a planned basis. Make sure you have these successes along the way, and then roll it out more broadly.
Terrific. Well, let me, before we go, I'll just remind our audience that we have additional assets that you guys have helped us create. So there are two previous archived sessions that are intended to go with this one. The first treats analyzing sales coverage, and you spoke about these at the top of the presentation today. I just want to remind everyone. The first is a great place to get started. It's on analyzing your sales coverage using geospatial data. The second one is about territory design. And then this one is really a way of implementing some refinements to how your folks execute in their territories in the field. So we hope also, we do have a short course on sales capacity optimization related to assignments and territory design. You can make use of that if you are a sales management association member. So anyway, make sure that you check out these additional resources. And gentlemen, thank you for the time today.
You're welcome. Thank everybody for attending. Thanks for having us, Bob. And we look forward to seeing you in Atlanta at Emory. I will not attempt to pronounce the name of the school.
The Gazweta School. Imagine a goat sweater and go with that. So it's like, you can even say it fast enough, you can get away with goat sweater. It's Gazweta. He was former CEO of the Coca-Cola company here in Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
We look forward to joining you there next month as well.
Thank you. And
it'll be our first one and first time for me in years, pre-COVID, I believe. So very excited.
Terrific. And so thanks again to Ken Kramer and Greg Detty from eSpatial. Again, before we go, I'll also remind our audience that in addition to our conference, we have our next session coming up. Our web session is November 29th. You can join us then for a session on improving forecast accuracy with AI. You can learn more about this session and many others on our site under the events menu tab. I'm Bob Kelly, Sales Management Association Chairman. Thanks again for your time and attention today. Goodbye until next time.